guys, and welcome back to my channel. So for 2020, I have actually decided for the first time ever to not use a Leuchtturm A5 dot grid notebook as my personal bullet journal. And the reason is that I have completely fallen in love with B6 notebooks. However, there isn't a notebook on the market that I really wanted to use for my bullet journal. So Leuchtturm has a new B6 size. However, it's the soft cover, so it's only 120 pages, which is fully not enough for an entire calendar year. I know of, for example, Stationery has a notebook, but that's like a bajillion pages, and that's just kind of too much. Also, I don't think that they are numbered. Actually, I would have to check on that, but it's just way too many pages. It's like 365 pages. And so after the little bookbinding workshop that I did with Claire and Melina and Ricardo back last summer, that was actually like the moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I can just make my own. So I am going to be making my own bullet journal for 2020. I'm going to be making a B6 size. I actually have designed it myself in InDesign, and I will be sharing it with you guys. So if any of you are interested in downloading and making your own B6 size notebook, maybe not for a bullet journal, but maybe yes, I am going to link it in my shop. It is pretty basic, like straight up, it is a very basic kind of notebook. So I basically did an intro page, so name, contact, and then it just had a little thing that says it's made by me, Sunshine and Stationery. I have an index, which I set up the index the way I actually want it. So it is a full spread with 4 columns, and there is no like dash for page number and then that, because you guys know I do what my thing, like what I'm indexing, a colon, and then the page number after it. So I've set it up so that I can index the way that I want to index. And then it is just a standard dot grid, 5mm dot grid notebook, and page numbered. I've done, so the entire thing is 236 pages long, because that, in terms of math and like for printing it out and binding it myself, that was kind of the easiest number for me to do. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward. So since I am going to make this available as a PDF download for you guys, and since I have to make my own bullet journal for myself, I figured I might as well film a tutorial so you guys have some way to kind of walk you through the steps in case you've never actually done a handbound notebook like this before. So this is going to be definitely more complicated than just the simple handbound notebooks that I normally make, where you just have the one packet of papers, the one signature, and you just stitch it up and you're good to go. So I'm going to be taking you through how to print the pages so that your page numbers stay correct based on your little signatures that you need to then bind individually. I'm going to show you guys how to actually prepare your pages to be bound. I'm going to show you how you punch the holes and how you stitch them up. Everything that you need to know in order to make your own notebook, I am going to show you how to do. You guys will also see the different tools that I use in making my notebook, and I will try and give you guys alternatives. Because I've made enough notebooks, I actually have gathered kind of official tools, if you will, for bookbinding. But if you don't have this, then I will try and give you guys alternatives if you want to just test this out, but without having to buy all the materials. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so the first step when you're going to be making your own notebook, and I apologize for no face visuals here, but I wanted to show you the computer, is you will get the PDF file. So the way that I have exported this file from InDesign is so that it will make signatures of 12, which means that when you print it out, you're going to have to then split all the printed pages into packets so you can then bind them that way. However, for now we're just going to focus on printing. So you'll see here it is a very simple design. You just have an intro page and a 2-page index and dot grid paper that is page numbered. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into File, Print, and then from here, so I actually am using a laser jet to print this so that I won't get smudging. So you want to do actual size and choose paper source by PDF page, because for whatever reason, when I unclick that, it makes it go like way off the page. So just choose paper source by PDF page size. It is landscape, and you want to print on both sides of the paper, and you want to make sure it's on flip on short edge so that it faces the correct way. So what I am going to do, this is actually a test print for me as well, so I might come back on here and fix the footage later. But basically you are going to choose your printer, make sure that you're on actual size. So one of the things that I haven't figured out in terms of exporting is if you actually do it on booklet, it kind of does all of this for you. However, this particular setup doesn't work. So you have to do it on your regular size in your PDF printer, and just make sure that you have all of that situated. So we are going to go ahead and hit print, and I will come back after and show you the next step. So now that your notebook has printed, you will see I have already split my pages apart. Now I will update this once I actually finalize the notebook to post. I actually did signatures of 12 and I forgot to do the math beforehand. I didn't realize there were only 3 pages each, which means that I have to bind 20 signatures together to make my notebook. So I am going to change it. So hopefully they will be signatures of 16. So you'll only have 15 to bind. Now I am keeping them kind of intentionally small just because it is such a large notebook that it helps the pages not offset too much when you fold them. So I have pre-split mine up, but when you actually print everything out, it is just in this direction. So basically what you have to do is you'll take however many pages, and I will tell you the official number of pages you have to take, but basically you take it, you sort of fold it over, and you just make sure that your back number here is then going to match up with the one that would be your first number here. So here I have 9, and it is going to be 10 over here. So I know that every single time I just have to take 3-page sections, and that will be my full signature. So once you've printed everything out and you split it apart so that you make sure you keep all your signatures together, definitely make sure as you're folding that you confirm that your page numbers are still in the right order. Obviously you don't want to find out after you've already started stitching that things are not actually in the correct order, because that would be not fun to deal with. So once you've done that, now you have to fold your pages. So I actually have a bone folder. This is just a plastic tool that you can buy. I think I actually got mine at Sastringren, but you can find them at different craft stores. However, I also think if you don't have a bone folder, some sort of a plastic ruler would probably work as well. Just it would be nice if you had a rounded edge. I don't necessarily recommend metal just because it might accidentally tear your pages. So let's move this out of the way. Oops. So basically, when you print out your notebook, you are going to see these little marks here. And as I mentioned, am kind of testing this out, so we're going to make sure things work. But essentially, these are going to ultimately be your cut marks, because this is A4 paper, but our final notebook is going to be B6. So when I fold everything, so make sure, try and fold as accurately as possible. And this is kind of where I am not always very good at, because I tend to start rushing. You should have your little hash marks here pretty close to middle. So when I look at it, you'll see I have spacing over here. And when I open up, nothing is going over the edge here, because I obviously want to not have anything run over and be not centered correctly. So once you do your initial fold like that, then you take your bone folder and you do that. And then I tend to just flip them over here. Let's go back out so you guys can see more. So I'm gonna show you guys an entire signature, and then I'll go ahead and time lapse the rest so you don't have to sit here watching me fold paper for like 3 hours. So do my initial fold, make sure everything is lined up, do my bone folder, flip, and the last one. Let's see, there, got that. So I've got the 3 pages of my signature, so now what I'm gonna do is re-flatten again with my bone folder and assemble. So make sure that I've got them in, and if you have done everything correctly, you should have the front page, your index, and then it'll start page numbering, page 1 over here, which, let's see, something did not go right. What didn't go right? 1, aha! So I actually folded this the wrong way. This is why we always double check. So just flipping that over, I now have page 2, page 3, 4, 5, 6, whoopsie daisy, 7, 8, and 9. So once you get into a rhythm, you can probably trust yourself after a while, but I like to double check, especially for the first few, that I don't have any sort of weird things happening. So once you do that, as always, I kind of plop things over backwards, and then you take up your next one. So my next one is going to be page 10. So you have to make sure you fold your pages in the proper direction. Otherwise you get basically what happened to me, where I had page 1 and page 4, which was not ideal. So I am going to keep folding these, and I think it might be time to time lapse so that we can get this done a little faster, and then I'll come back and show you guys how you actually will punch the holes for doing your stitching. So that is all of the pages folded together, and I did just check. So I've made a few notebooks like this before. This is going to be my 3rd that I'm binding like this, and it took me under 20 minutes, probably 15 to 17 minutes to fold and use the bone folder to press all of my sides flat to do a 240 page notebook. So it definitely doesn't take a lot of time once you kind of get the hang of it and you get into a rhythm. Also, I forgot to mention before, the paper that I am using personally is stuff that I found here. I believe it is DCP. It is Clairefontaine paper, but it's DCP. It's a little bit kind of smoother and silkier feeling than the trophy stuff that they have. And I also like it because it is more of a true ivory, whereas some others that I've seen are ivory, but it's really very yellow. So I think I threw away the packaging like 2 months ago, so I can't remember, but it's between 90 and 100 grams. So for a 240 page notebook, it's gonna be a pretty hefty notebook, all things considered. So folding has been done. Next up, we need to punch holes. This, I honestly think you just need an awl. If anyone knows of an alternative tool that you can use, maybe a very, very thick needle, but it's really nice to have this handle. So this is an awl I picked up at a craft store that I have, and I have also, because I've kind of done this a little bit before, I've actually got a couple of other things that I use. So I have this piece of cardstock that is a kind of very intentionally different color from the paper that I use in my notebooks, and I actually use this. So let's take one signature to start. Push those out of the way. So when I'm gonna punch my holes, I like to make sure that I have another piece of paper under, so that when I'm going through, if I accidentally go a little too far, I'm not gonna gouge my table. The other thing that I have is this little template that I have made for A5 and B6 notebooks. Now, the one thing that I just realized as I was folding paper is that when I made my B6 template, I centered it on the bottom edge, which obviously does not work, because I have on this actually centered it like in the middle. So what I think I'm going to have to do is, if you can see here, if I basically center it at this point, it will be fine, because I've basically got even spots between here. And for this notebook, I will probably just use this, but in the future, I think I will remake one that has my B6 measurements, but centered on an A5. So you see here, this is an A5, except that if I were to use the A5 size, that goes a little bit with like outside of my measurements. So those two end stitches will get cut off, which is why I can't use this side and just be done with it. So I have actually made a little template for myself. This is something that I saw from Claire when she did the workshop for us, when I learned how to do this, that she has a template that she's made, and that way all of your stitches line up, because that is actually really important. You need to have all of your stitches line up from signature to signature so that when you're actually sewing everything together, you have straight lines of stitches and not like some weird sort of configuration. It'll make your notebook more stable. When you are gonna punch your awl, and I'm actually going to, I have just like a super awkward pen right here. I'm actually gonna make a note so that this is where my top edge is. And I will have to make this a little bit more official later, but for now, to make sure that I'm always doing it at the same point, I just need to line up this at my top edge. That way I don't have to eyeball here. I just know I line up this top edge and it's gonna be the same on all of mine. Also, make sure when you are punching holes that you always punch in the same orientation. Otherwise, you know, things could get a little bit weird. So you're gonna make sure that all of your pages are together. Make sure they're lined up like this, and put your template in your little crevice there, and then so the way I do it, and it's gonna be really hard to see, but I'll try and see what I can do, is I basically, once you start, if you have a template like this, once you use the awl for a while, you'll start getting a little bit of a divot in where you're going to punch, so it actually helps you kind of guide in. So when I actually punch, you basically are gonna go kind of flat. So it's kind of hard to see, but I've basically just got my thumb under this. I'm not like up like this. So it's basically kind of flat. I line up with my divot, and I actually always punch it with my notebook closed. And you really, can you see that? You only go out a little tiny bit so that you don't get too big of a hole. So then you line up your next one, close your notebook, punch, line up, close, punch. And once you get good, you can kind of just like eyeball, and I think I missed a hole actually. Yep, there we go. And let's do, I'm being bad, I'm gonna do the last one over the table. But you don't wanna push hard, and especially because my signatures are only 3 pages thick, it really doesn't take a lot of effort to punch through. So now, it's gonna be hard to see, but now I've got my holes all on the side there. So let's go ahead, I'll show you on a second one before I go ahead and do the time lapse. So put that out of the way. So make sure that my pages are all lined up. Oops, come on, focus. Make sure when I'm lining up here, oh, my pages are not lined up. What's happening? Oh, because I only opened up 2 of them. Make sure you open all 3 pages, otherwise that would not work well. So I've got all of them open. I'm going to make sure that I've lined up here, okay? And I'm gonna go ahead and do my first punch, and what I'm actually gonna do before I even continue is check. So you'll see here, my 2 holes line up. Okay, so I am good to go. So I'm gonna make sure everything, because I moved, make sure everything's relined up. So I definitely wanna make sure that my line, this should be lined up with my hole, we're good. So now I'm gonna go through and do the rest of them. Okay, so really does not take a lot of force. You don't want to have a super huge hole. I mean, it is obviously going to be covered with the cover of your notebook, but you don't want to have a gigantic hole that you're working with. You just need enough so you can get your thread through. So now that I've got my 2 done here, let's take a peek. So you can see that all of my holes are lined up. So you can see here, it's kind of hard to tell, but here you go. So you can see all my holes are lined up. So you need to do these for the rest of your signatures. Now that we have punched all of our holes, and I like to check, so if you saw in the time lapse, I would check every like 4 or 5 packets just to make sure I was still in line, even though I do have my little measuring like piece here. I just like to kind of confirm that I'm on track, and I haven't, especially since this particular one isn't going to line up with the bottom, so I can like very clearly check that it's flush. I just wanted to make sure that I was keeping on track with where my top edge marker was. And the one thing that I forgot to mention before is how big these spaces are. So they are 1 inch between each one, and then it is 3/8 of an inch from the bottom. So if you have a sewing gauge like this, you can check, but it is just 3/8 of an inch from the bottom there. And when it's actually done, it should be pretty equal. So if we're looking between our marks, so basically my first dot here and my second dot here, my two ends, if you will, are fairly evenly placed between the top and the bottom. So when I cut off the extra, they're approximately even. Now, when I print things out on A4, I need to just remake my guide so that it is centered, because that's how typically I'm going to print it. So it's maybe not as exact as I normally would have it, but in all honesty, all you really need is for all of your dots to actually be exact. Where they are in placement is more of an aesthetic thing. This is functional though, like you need them to line up so that when you stitch, things aren't going to go wonky. So now that we are done punching holes, we can move all of those materials out of the way. You guys also might know I have changed clothes again. I've actually filmed this tutorial over the course of like 3 days, because that's just kind of how long it's taken me to have time to get everything done. So the next part is stitching. I use a couple of things when it comes to stitching the binding for my notebooks. I have kind of my old method and my new method. So we're going to show you both of those so that you have an idea. So I'm pulling out all of my materials. Actually, don't need my seam gauge. That was just for the other part. So basically, you need clips of some persuasion. All of my very large clips are actually up at work. So these are the size that I have to work with, which at some point is going to no longer hold all of my notebooks, like all of my pages. So I think it'll hold like maybe half of them, because this is a pretty thick notebook. But you need some kind of clips to stabilize. You will need scissors so you can cut your thread. You will need a tapestry type needle or an embroidery needle. So this is actually one that's got a fairly large opening at the head here, and I actually leave a piece of embroidery floss in here just so that I know this is my notebook binding needle basically. So I have two different types of thread over here. I will show you guys what I used to use before I kind of went legit, if you will. So I have a collection of embroidery floss. These are actually all destined to be for bindings for notebook. I probably will still use these for doing things like junk journals where I want to have a little bit of a different color thread. So basically what I would do is I would take, and I used the gray for a very long time, so there's not much left of this. So basically with embroidery floss, there's about 6 strands that are all twisted together. And so what I would do is I would take 2 or 3 strands and separate them basically. So if you very, very tediously and carefully pull your strands, oopsie daisy, there you go, you can separate them out. So then you basically have 2 threads, but it is definitely thicker than normal thread, and so it'll be a little bit stronger. So in terms of things like junk journals, I do still kind of use these just because you have some different colors that you can play around with. So that is definitely a possibility. I would say for notebook bindings like this, maybe go for 2 threads just because 3 might get a little bit bulky. Then what I have started to do now that I've learned how to do this style of binding is I use a heavy duty thread. So this is what brand are you? This is a Gutermann, and it is a fairly short, it's a fairly small spool, but this is just heavy duty thread, and I have it in kind of a cream color because it basically just blends into my notebook here, so you don't really see it that much, which is nice. So I will be using this for binding my actual notebook here. So the basic process, and I typically will start at the back of my notebook. I like to, it sometimes takes me a signature or two to kind of get into a rhythm, and so I like to start at the back just to kind of make sure that the front ones are going to look all nice and pretty. But basically with this many signatures, so there are 20, if you guys end up downloading the file, it should be 15. I think I have fixed that, so I will confirm that before hopefully before this goes live. But because I have so many signatures, there is no way that I can actually sew with the amount of thread that I need to do to sew all of them in together. Like, it's just way too much. It'll get knotted and all of that kind of stuff. So basically I just take a fairly long piece, just because I hate changing thread too often. Basically, I don't know, like 4 feet. We're gonna start there. We're gonna start with 4 feet. Up. So I've got my thread, and then I need to thread my needle. Obviously, this is the next most important step. Get my embroidery floss out of the way. This is honestly my least favorite part. I kind of hate threading needles, but you gotta do it. Oopsie daisy. There we go. So pull it through a bit. Now, because this is going to bulk up just by the virtue of having to sew everything together, you definitely do not want to double up your thread. If you get heavy duty thread, it should be thick enough. Plus, you're going to be binding it with glue, and then you're gonna put a cover over it. Like, it should be strong enough that you don't need to do to like double up on your thread, basically. Oh my gosh. And I'm always like, look at that, these knots. Like, come on, Caitlin. There we go, let's see. And I'm sure there's a better way to make knots. There we go. Now I have 3 knots altogether, so that's good. I'm sure there's a better way to make knots. However, I am not I'm not that skilled at doing my knots like that. So what I actually tend to do is, as I start, I will actually pull my thread so that it is much closer to halfway. So you can see, like, I just have basically this section, and then my double thread starts here. And then as I move along, I will just move it up, just so that I have less length to work with, but so that I never end up accidentally sewing a double like thread through my holes. So let's move this out of the way. So we are going to flip things over. There we go. And like I said, I start at the back, and I also will start at the bottom. And this, honestly, is kind of the easiest one. This one just goes like a regular notebook. So when I do a singular, like basically it's just the one signature, and let's see if I can actually sew while I talk. When I just do one signature, I will start and do the thread on the inside, because I am, oh my goodness, why am I so unable to do this? There we go. So now that I've got this started. So when I sew one signature, so something like a junk journal, something where I'm only going to be sewing together one packet of paper, I will actually start from the inside and have my knot on the inside, because when I finish, I will then tie things together and it'll just close in there nicely, because then you won't see the knot on the outside. However, for something like this, where I'm going to then cover everything in glue and then cover it with a different cover, I start it so I have my knot on the outside, because this is not going to be the knot to tie everything off. It's just to start me off. And now I have, oh my gosh, please tell me I haven't made a huge knot in this. Okay, we're good. So you basically start on the outside, so go in, and then you will just jump through. Oops. So these, the only thing with these wire clips is that they catch on the thread constantly. All right, I don't need those yet. There we go. So you're going to sew through. So I'm going to go in through this one hole, and then the very next one, I'm gonna go back inside my thing. Make sure you're getting through the hole nicely. Oops. Then back out this one. Okay, so you want to basically see one long stitch on the outside, and then for the immediate next stitch, you see one long stitch on the inside, and back and forth. All right, come on, you. There. This is something that I tend to do very close to myself, and I'm kind of having to move the signature farther away so that I can make sure I'm in frame, and it is making me feel really awkward, but that's okay. Well, we will prevail. So, oops. So once you get up to the top, oops, and you've got, so you can see here, you've got your little in and outs everywhere. So I just kind of will tighten. You don't want to pull it too tight, but you do want to make sure it is taut enough, because the more the tighter your stitching is, the more secure your cover is going to be. The looser your stitches are, the more likely your notebook can kind of move around a little bit. So you don't want to pull too tight because you'll start ripping paper, but you don't want to leave it too loose because then things are going to shift. So once you've hit this point, then you are going to, whoops, and I'm actually on this side, so you'll see I've got my sides here, and then the opposite ones are stitched over there. So now you're going to go back the way you came, so that at the end, you basically have a solid line of stitching. So I'm gonna just come back through here. There we go. Okay, and this is where things get dicey. Your thread will get caught, oh my gosh. My thread always gets caught on the corner of the notebook and or on the clips once I get to the point where I have to use the clips. It is just a constant struggle, which is why you shouldn't use too long of thread, and I probably in some ways use longer than I should just because I really hate having to restart, but you absolutely have to. For a long notebook, you are absolutely not going to be able to do all of your stitching with one piece of thread. It's just not possible. So, and I've actually, honestly, with the length that I've done enough that maybe I can sew together like 4-5 signatures maximum. So it's gonna, So you see here, I've actually already reached the double end, so I need to make sure I pull that out so that I don't accidentally double up. So what I've got is this here. So I'm gonna go back in because I don't have a stitch yet on this side. So you're gonna go back in, flip around, ta-da! But now you might be thinking, okay, I have sewn everything, so we are all good to go, but how am I now going to attach the next one? So what you have to do is you are going to slide your needle under your bottom stitch, wrap it around, and then you are going to go back through this bottom hole. Oops. So go back through and ta-da! Okay, so now I am on the outside and it has created a little loop so that I won't accidentally undo my stitching. So now I'm on the back here. This is where you are going to take your next signature and confirm, always, always, always confirm page 226, 225. So they're gonna go together like this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to make sure they line up, take them flat here, and then I'm going to flip and clip. So if you have smaller clips, if I can ever find them, because a lot of times they're at work, but if I ever have smaller clips, then what I will do is I will start out with my smaller clips, and then as I finish more signatures, I will add them, but I do always close my clips. It just kind of leaves things a little bit more secure. So you want to make sure that everything is lined up. So you don't have any kind of weird gaps over here. Everything is lined up. Want to make sure that your signature over here, oopsie daisy, you want to make sure your signature, the pages are together as much as possible. Okay, so now we are on the outside here. Okay, so we started over here, so now we are going to go in the bottom. Come on, you. Pull through, and we are going to go out the next one up here. So this is where I start having issues and things get caught. There we go. Once you're out here, what you need to do is connect it to the first signature. So I'm connected over here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through, oops, as I'm out of frame, go through, kind of pull that sort of taut, and then I'm going to go back in the same hole that I came out from. So you basically are just creating, oopsie daisy, you're basically just creating a little loop around the first thing. And so you can see here, mine is a little bit loose, and this always happens to me. So just kind of pull it a little tight and make sure you pull that, okay? And so now I'm connected with a little loop right here, and I'm back on the inside. So with your first signature, you basically will go every other in and out and then double back around. With your second and all of the future signatures, you are going to go up through each hole, loop around and come back in so that you still have your continuous line of stitches on the inside here, but you are no longer going to have, all of your stitches on the outside, because they are just going to loop. So do that, pull it kind of taut, go through, oh dear, there we go, pull through, oh, what did I do? Come on, you. Oh, I've got a little piece that got kind of caught. Okay, got kind of caught, we're good. So make sure I've kind of pulled it taut, we're good to go. And then I'm gonna go back through the same hole. And ta-da. So, all good to go. And we just continue. So, next one, through, loop, there, back through, whoops. Make sure you keep things taut, but not overly tight. You don't want to accidentally break your thread, which I think I've actually done at least once. It'll happen. It's not the end of the world. You can go back and fix it, but if you can, here we go. If you can learn how to not break your thread, that's always better. So here, got that. And through in here. Now the only downside of me doing this the way I always would do it is that I'm doing this on cream paper with cream thread. So I apologize. I hope that this is as visible as I'm thinking it will be. We'll find out. So go back through. It actually, honestly, making notebooks like this, once you learn how to do it, it's a lot of very simple, very repetitive tasks. Once you learn how to do it, I will say there is a tiny bit of a learning curve starting out. Once you kind of figure that out, then you're good to go. But once you actually do figure it out, it's honestly not that complicated. You know what I mean? There's, you know, you are gonna fold all of your pieces of paper with your bone folder, and that's just gonna be what you do until you finish. And then you're gonna go through and you're going to punch all of your holes. And that's just what you're gonna do until you know, it's a lot of very repetitive tasks, which if you like that kind of stuff, like I do, I actually personally find it very therapeutic. And so for me, I really enjoy making notebooks because I just can kind of, obviously when I'm not filming them, when I'm just doing it on my own, I just can kind of zone out and kind of get into a groove with it. And I usually will have like music on, or I'll listen to an audiobook, or I might watch some like TV show that I'm really familiar with, so I can kind of like zone in and out of the TV show as I'm working on things. But yeah, I find this to be a very sort of calming activity. Now, if you dislike doing repetitive tasks, this might not be the thing for you. Like, let's be honest, it might not be. So once you've done this, you are now on the inside. So I've got all of my nice, lovely stitches on here, but in order to connect the next signature, I need to go back to the outside. So we're gonna do the exact same thing that we did the last time. So we're gonna slide through our loop up here, oops, come around, and then go back out through this hole right here, and I've caught up to my thread, so we need to pull that through. Good. So now I am back on the outside, and I'm ready to add my next signature. That out of the way. So now what I'm gonna do, as I mentioned, this is very repetitive. So close your signature, make sure everything's all good to go, taut and whatnot. So I'm on page 214 here, I've got page 213 here, so I just line them up, line up my signatures. Actually, I need to not set that back down because I actually need to be able to open it. Split it, so I have my two sides here and here. Double check that everything is lined up in there. So now I can close here and here, okay? So third signature is added on. So you'll see you'll basically start, you know, when I started, I start at the back on the bottom, And so for the second signature, I add it starting from the bottom going to the top. Third, I'm going to start from the top going to the bottom, and you just are going to alternate your way through. Next step. So we've got our thread. Make sure I'm not catching up too much. Okay, so now what you're going to do is go, oops, inside your first bit. Oh no. So you have to be careful when you go through that you go through all of your pages. I actually just went through like 1 or 2 of them. So always confirm before you push the needle all the way through, because that would not be ideal. So pull out. Once you've gone in here, you do your first stitch, because I'm automatically connected to the last, ooh, that is not fully pulled through. What's happening here? There we go. Okay, just the virtue of going into this first one makes it so that I'm connected to the second one. So now I just go out to the next one, pull taut, make sure all good. And then I do the same thing. So now instead of, so the first signature, you actually have a thread on the outside here, but from now on, you are no longer going to have that thread to work on. You are basically going to work at your loop that you joined the previous signature. So your loop is always going to go through just the preceding loop. And this is where things can get a little dicey. You have to angle your needle so you accidentally don't drop it through. So you can actually just get through. But can you see here? I've come out, whoops, I've got my thread here, and then I've gone back to then go through the loop I made for attaching the previous signature, and now I go through there. So now I just have a little loop right there, and then I go back through that same hole that I just came out of. Okay, and we continue. So basically, as you add more and more signatures, you are essentially going to create a line of little like loop knots that are going to form the ridge of your spine here. So you're only going to have the connecting thread through that first signature. Everything else is just going to be the little loops through a thread through the previous loop that you had made, if that makes sense. So there we go. It's much easier to make sure you can still grab your needle when you're only a few signatures in, because you just don't have as much like width that you're working with. But it is definitely still possible to not lose your needle. It just takes a little practice. So going back, ta-da, there we go. Go through my little side, pull, make sure we're all good on here, and then go back through, doop. And I don't know if it's just me like as a lefty or if this is something everyone does, but I feel like I'm constantly just flipping things around to get to the right angle. And again, it's probably everyone. It can't just be me, but sometimes it feels like I'm just making like more movement and more work for myself as I'm doing this, but it's fine. So here we go. Oh. Okay. Here. Okay, so there, we've got our little end. Okay, oops. So now, as always, we're gonna come back through. Oh dear, I just went through not the right thing. There we go. So come back through. Oops, and I've got caught on something. Got to be careful that you don't accidentally create little knots for yourself. Oh dear, flinging things left and right. There we go. Okay, so pulled through. I'm on the inside, which means I need to then go back to the outside. So I take my loop, pull through, and I go, whoopsie, go back out the other side. Okay, no, what am I caught on? There we go. Okay, so now have my nice line of stitches here, and you'll see mine, even with practice, like some of mine get a little bit looser than others. I honestly don't know why they like to do that. Yeah, something is being a little funky. I need to be more careful about that probably. I don't I don't know what I'm doing actually. So I'm going to just leave those as is, and hopefully I didn't do anything super weird. So just kind of be careful about that. I am definitely not always the most patient when it comes to like really, really making sure that all of my stitches are fully like there. But you can see, you can kind of tighten them a little bit. So I just need to make sure I'm definitely paying attention to this in future. I literally don't know. It feels like so this is one of those things. It feels like I'm always pulling it tight, and then sometimes when I check, it'll do things like this. I still don't really know what I'm doing wrong, so like, I'm still learning this process as well. If you have some loose stitches, it is not the end of the world, just, you know, something to keep in mind and pay attention to as you keep going forward. So we are now ready for the next one. So I'm on page 202, next is 201, and away we go. Okay, so all connected, things are together, and we continue. So I'm kind of doing these first couple of signatures real time with you, so you have, I know when I was learning how to do this, I really needed to see the first couple and like really see, okay, where am I actually putting my thread through to connect? How am I doing that knot and all of this? So that's why if you've already gotten this, feel free to jump ahead. But if you are still finding, and as you can see, as things move along, it gets a little hard to put the needle through your loop there. But if you are still finding like, okay, wait, how am I doing it? What do I do with that knot? Like all of that kind of fun stuff. Then I want to make sure I gave you guys enough sort of real-time practice. You could see, oops, as we get caught. So you can see how things are developing. I also want to make sure I show you guys how you finish off and change your thread when you run out, because as you can see, I am starting to get a little bit less thread here. So let's see, come on. Get my thread on the proper side so I don't catch it, hopefully, as I constantly catch it. Literally. What did I just say, thread? What did I just say? There we go. All right, there we go. So pulling through, oops, and there. Back the way we came. Okay, so definitely this is not like the folding or the punching where you see it like twice and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm good to go. This is definitely, if you're not familiar, I mean, if you're not familiar with sewing in general or doing this kind of stuff, I know when I first started, it definitely took a minute before my brain was like, oh yeah, we got this, it's fine. And even like when I first start every single new notebook, there's usually at least one time where I'm looking at the signature and I'm like, wait a minute, what am I doing next? Even though I've done this before and I definitely know how to do it, it just is one of those kind of skills you have to rethink through, right? So I'm gonna do, oops, there. Once again, I always think I'm doing my stitching tight enough, and I feel like I should be still doing it, like I feel like I should be doing it tighter still, and I'm not really even sure how to accomplish that. So I'm hoping just like hours of practice will eventually get me there. We'll find out. Oh, that's not where we need to go. That's where we need to go. Oops. So there. Let's see. So the first couple of signatures, just because of the nature of starting things out, they are, ooh, so this is one where I don't even know where my needle went, but it's not in the middle. So before you fully push it through, just confirm that you're in the right, there we go. Just make sure you're in the right place. Okay, because it's definitely much harder to fix it if you've already put the needle all the way through. Like trying to pull it back out the other way is not simple. So it might be possible if you have a lot of patience, but I definitely don't recommend doing that if at all possible. So I've done my last loop, which means now I need to go back in to secure it. Oops. So go back in, up, Then I'm going to pass my needle through my inside loop, my inside stitch, and then go back out so that I'm ready to connect the next signature. There we go. All right, so now we've got the next one. So flip. Ta-da. So you can start seeing a pattern. We're not quite enough in to like really see it, but you can start seeing these little loops. And especially if you're careful and you always pass your needle through in the same direction, you'll start to get a really nice design on your spine here. Honestly, I love, once I've finished stitching everything, I love looking at the spine because I think it looks really pretty. Maybe that's just me, but something to keep an eye out for. So page 190, page 189, and away we go. Make sure I'm in the middle. Okay. Come on, you. There. Had a little battery dying on me, so we are back and good to go. So second clip right here, and we're all lined up. So this one, we are at the top. So once again, oh, come on, there we go. Okay. I think after this signature, I'm probably going to switch and do a new bit of thread. So that'll be a good thing to show you guys. Oh my gosh, there we go. So as you can see, once you start getting more and more of a, right, there we go. Once you start getting more and more of a solid wall over here, it starts getting a little bit more fun getting your needle through the loop. So just something to look forward to. Okay, come on. I'm having issues. Can't see. There we go. All right, so hold on a second. Let's re-pull that taut because I just loosened it up. And ta-da. It also gets a little tough once you get past the point where you no longer have a lot of like width left. So I tend to use the fact that my needle is much shorter than the width of my signatures up until a certain point. So definitely one of the more adventuresome parts of stitching, of bookbinding in general, I guess, insofar as this can be considered adventuresome. There. I really should have like made a cup of tea or something while I was doing this. I don't know what I was thinking. There. Oh, and I accidentally went through not the middle. Oh, come on. You are just being ornery. There we go. Okay, so re-pull that taut. And there. Okay, so I'm at the bottom, so I'm gonna go back in. Oh, there. Going to loop through my stitch and oopsie daisy, come back out. All right, you know what? I think we can fit one more signature before I have to switch threads. And this is one of those things also, I always kind of play with fire and I'm like, no, I can do one more. And then I get to the end and I have like 2 inches left of thread that I have to use to tie off. So we'll see how this goes. This might be fine, or it might have been that I should have tied it off now. So 178, 177, we are nice and consecutive. I know this maybe seems kind of anal, but like, how horrible would it be to get a couple of signatures in and realize that at one point you just like switched it, like you straight up did it backwards or you did them upside down. Like, I just like to kind of confirm, since I would rather not have to undo all of my stitching in order to fix the like one signature I messed up. But look at this, we've already got pages 166 through 240. We're, what, like a quarter in, I think? So wait, how many have we done? This is our 6th signature, which means I am slightly over a quarter of the way through with binding my notebook, which is kind of awesome. So, once again, we're at the bottom. Go in. Oh, so gotta be careful. I kind of went sideways. There we go. So now I'm a little bit more centered. So sometimes if you go through, oh, this is what happens. So here, I need to go back out. I've skipped one. So go back out. I did my thing, and even if I would have looked, it would have made more sense. So I have to go back in the same hole. Come on, Caitlin. There we go. That's right. This is what happens when you're trying to talk while you bind books. Which, I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't talk and bind books, but I'm just saying that I am not always capable of talking and binding books. All right, come on, you. You are just being persnickety. All right. Last stitch on this one. Go through the top. Oops. Go back in. Nope. There we go. Okay, so now, whoopsie daisy, catching all my other ones. So go back through, and of course I'm gonna get caught there. Oops. Go back out. So now, don't wanna pull that out. Let's see, so we are all set. So now I need to tie this off. I only have this much thread left, and that is definitely not enough to finish another signature. So what we're gonna do is, oops, I hate doing knots, so this should be fun. So you're gonna go through, oops, it's getting stuck. There we go, go through. So I actually need to hold on to my loop, and I'm pulling my thread so it doesn't double up on me. I'm gonna hold on to my loop, and I'm gonna do a little knot, and I'm gonna do a second one just for good measure, because, you know, we want that to be secure. There, go through my loop, knot, and then when you cut it off, don't cut it off too close. I'm always really bad about remembering to do this. So you wanna make sure I've got, so you see I've got my little end over here from when I started, I've got my end over here when I finish. Because this is all going to be glued and then enclosed in a cover, this will just help it make sure that you don't accidentally rip out your knot at some point. So you're just going to, when you glue this down, you're gonna make sure you glue down that strand along the base of the spine, basically. So I am going to rethread my needle, and I'm gonna just time lapse the rest of these for you guys, because I think after doing about 6 of them, you should have a pretty good idea of how this works. So if you need to rewatch any particular section, just go back to the beginning of this section and see how things go. Also, if you have any questions, you can always just ask me in the comment section. Before I let you guys go on the time lapse, I realized there was one other step I needed to explain, which is how do you go from having a tied off section to then adding a new, what's it called, a new signature. So basically what we're gonna do is take the previous one that I've just finished, I'm gonna go in just so my knot still stays on the outside, just because it looks nicer, okay? And then I'm gonna go loop through here, and then pull it back through. So basically kind of pretending as though this were still the same thread and I'm just still wrapping up on this same signature. However, you guys might notice that I'm actually doing it on the bottom because I am weird like that, and I just like to start on the bottom whenever possible. So once you've done that, now you need to reclamp your signature. So page 165, page 166, always triple and quadruple check. So now that I've got that, So I'm just kind of collecting little end threads that are all gonna get glued up into my spine once I'm actually done. So now what I'm gonna do is, starting from the outside, I go through and I'm gonna continue on as I did before. Ta-da, all done. So that is what you do once you get your new thread in. So now we can go back to the time lapse. So I wanted to come back on here for doing the last signatures just so we can kind of finish everything all up. I am going, well, you guys will have seen this already, that I super time-lapsed the stitching process. I honestly probably could have just not filmed all of it. However, once I get going on the stitching side of things, I actually kind of lose track of time, and I really wanted to be able to give you guys an idea of how long it actually took. Now, I, as of right now, have not actually watched that footage, so I will tell you guys in the description box and or put something in here to let you know how long it actually took me to bind all of my signatures together. But I think it was somewhere in the realm of 40 minutes to an hour. And again, this is obviously this is kind of taking a little bit longer than it might otherwise, because I literally had 20 signatures that I had to stitch together, whereas normally I would be smart and print the signatures to have more pages so that I have less sewing to do. But I was playing around with the program and didn't quite know what I was doing, so I sort of screwed that up, but it is what it is. So I am up to my last signature, which I am super excited about because, as I mentioned, it's probably been between 40 minutes and an hour. So this is my third piece of thread that I'm using. Oh my gosh, we're getting to the point where I'm having like really struggle. You might have seen this. I'm really struggling, and it's like bending the sides of my, oh my gosh, I should have a thimble. I literally don't even know if I have a thimble. But you can see here, like this section got bent a little bit, and I honestly don't know how to avoid that and like still get my needle through. So if anyone has any tips or tricks that they learn, that they know, etc., let me know, because it's kind of frustrating once you get to the end of your, once you get to the end of your notebook and you've got all these signatures put together, especially for something like this. I mean, this is a 240 page notebook that I'm hoping will last me all of 2020, which, time will tell. Oh my gosh. But I'm also a little bit particular in that I like to do my loops always in the same direction, which means that things get a little tight. If I were to do them the opposite way, I would probably have an easier time getting my needle through, but it is what it is. So hoping the light is not getting too bad. I actually finally got some better lighting for filming. However, it's like 4 o'clock now and the sun's starting to go down, which, that kind of changes things. So I didn't actually measure how much thread that I used, but as I mentioned, I did about 4 lengths that were probably 12 to 16 inches long. And I needed 3 pieces of thread to bind all of my sections together. So not too bad, all things considered. Oh my gosh, come on, we can do it. Oh, oops. All right, almost there. Almost there. I actually really do enjoy the stitching, but after this long, I'm kind of ready. I'm kind of excited to be finished, if we're being honest. I'm very excited to move on to the next step. I'm sure you guys are too. If you guys are doing this along with me, I'm sure you are also sick of stitching and ready to get on to the next bit. But the cool thing is that even just, oh gosh, come on. Even just like this, this very clearly is starting to take the form of a notebook, which is amazing. And our last one, hallelujah. Oh, I'm so excited. All right, so as always, when we come to an end, so whether you come to the absolute final end or if you come to the end of your thread and you need to sew things off or tie things off is also what we would say. So, whoops, come back through, loop through there, go back out, whoops. Okay, don't have as much control with my right hand, but we're gonna make it work. There we go, and then I'm going to, all of my little pieces have gotten caught under other things, but it's fine. They're gonna get glued down anyway, so it's not a big deal. So, I'm gonna pull through. Oops, need to flatten this so I don't catch it on my clip. All right, clip. This is the end of the road. We can finally part ways soon. So, pull through the loop. Oops. Try not to pull the thread out of your needle. And we're gonna do one last knot for good measure because we want things to be secure. We can do this. There we go. Okay. One last little knot. Up. There we go. And we are going to cut. So we've got roughly an inch left. So you guys will notice my clamps were not actually large enough to clamp my entire notebook, and I really should. Honestly, if you have big enough clips, and or if you have clips that you can start with something smaller, go to a medium size, and then go to a large size, it's better because it keeps things more stable. I honestly just don't have bigger clips at home right now. They're all up at work, which I didn't think that through. But this is everything all together, so you guys can see over here, we've got our nice straight line of stitches. I have, because I normally start at the bottom anytime I have a new thing, I have a couple of threads down here and like really only one at the top. So that's something to maybe alternate in the future, but the threads themselves are they're pretty small, so they can just kind of get glued down as you're doing that. So you guys will see it moves a bit. It shouldn't move too much, but it does move a bit. Now, the one main reason why I want to make signatures that are more pages is because the stitches kind of get to a point where they don't smush down anymore, and so you have like a larger spine than you do for the notebook. But it should still work pretty well, so I'm not gonna worry about it. So this is our notebook, all ready to be glued and then bound with a cover. So next step, we need, this is bookbinding glue. I bought it here in France, and it was just one that on the box, it's a larger container, but because I didn't want it to dry out, I've just transferred it into this old salt container, and it basically should just say like dealing with paper, bookbinding, that sort of thing. So wherever you're looking for it, if you go to an art store, I would ask them what like the good brands would be. Mine is just some random brand I found here in France, so I'm not even gonna show you the container. Definitely ask for help when you're at your art store if you don't already have bookbinding glue for whatever reason. So I've got my glue. I've got a little squared off, fairly stiff brush to help lay down the glue. And I actually am going to have to move some stuff. So I tend to like to do my gluing. I have this little bit of like vinyl-y cloth that is specifically for art projects. You can maybe see that's some like gold and or yellow paint. So it tends to live folded up. So I'm just gonna open up enough so that my notebook will fit on there. Let's try and recenter. So I'm gonna have that. I have my press. So for this, having a book press is really, really helpful. And honestly, this isn't like this is a book press for me because that's the only thing I use it for. But basically, you've got 2 pieces of wood and a long screw, so you have plenty of, like, you can open it up as wide as a notebook, and then just little butterfly closures so you can like very easily twist them closed. If you don't have a book press, I am not 100% sure what you could use instead. Maybe very, very heavy books that you like stack over it, but you want to be very careful that you have something between the book and your notebook so you don't accidentally get glue on your books. So I actually do have a book press. Claire actually made this for me when I went and did a little bookbinding workshop with her and some other friends, so I am good to go. I also am going to use some vellum. So I like to have a little bit of vellum that I put, and actually, you know what? Maybe I'll do like fancy vellum. Do we want to do fancy vellum? So I have this like weird thing where I like to do a little bit of vellum right here, and I tend to put it on when I glue my spine, just so that if I have any overlap, it's on this paper that I'm planning to leave in there anyhow. So let's see, I think I want to do, unfortunately, I only have one of each except for this one. Do we like this? That's actually kind of fun. Yeah, you know what? We're gonna do the little kind of flowery motifs. So I was originally going to use, I have some blank, like, not blank, white vellum, and I also have this peach vellum. So I was actually just gonna use plain vellum, but since I have this fun stuff, why not? And since we have to cut our notebook down to size anyway, it doesn't matter that it's a little bit bigger. So the way this works is this is gonna be a little dicey because I have to line everything up. So you take your press, open it up so you can get your notebook in there. Oops. All right, hold on. We're having issues. There we go. So you want to line your notebook up in there, and then I'm just gonna so because my vellum is a tiny bit wider this way, I'm just gonna make sure that it's flush against the edge here, and then this, as long as it covers both edges, it doesn't really matter if it's actually even because it's just gonna get cut off. So let's make sure that things are kind of squared away. I'm gonna pull this over here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tighten it a little bit just so things don't shift. And then I'm gonna kind of walk you through this now because once you glue it, you have to move a little bit quickly. So what I'm gonna do is then glue, and then I'm going to pull my entire notebook back so that this part is squished, and then I'm going to retighten it again. Now, I should have another piece of scratch paper in between, and maybe, oh, this has shifted entirely too much. There we go, there. Yeah, just gotta make sure things don't shift too much on you. because as that happens. All right, so we are gonna take a peek here. So the goal is to basically get glue on your spine and not anywhere else, right? So that's kind of that is our plan of attack here. I've got my glue, I've got my brush, and let's do, how am I gonna do this? All right, so basically I'm gonna attempt to hold it like so and not have anything shift on me. So I'm gonna start kind of over here so I don't put my hand in it. So get some glue on your brush and start, oops, so I'm gonna go this way to make sure I glue my little side bits down. So I wanna make sure I get glue everywhere, but you don't wanna do it super thick, but you definitely wanna get glue in all of your little bits and bobs so that things stay attached. There. Okay, up. This was not well thought out. It's not ideal for me to be holding this. All right. Up. Make sure you get it over your little knots. Up. You can tell my knots on the bottom are definitely a little bit thicker than all of my others because that's where all of my end of thread adjustments and tie-offs and whatnot happened. So let's do, oops, sorry, my hand's gonna be covering that section, but I kind of can't move my hand right now. So did a quick little glue over here. So now, while everything is still nice and wet, I need to make sure that I'm flush. So my vellum has completely shifted. There we go. And I'm gonna pull back. Okay, so because my stitching is now so much, oops, we're gonna loosen this up. Honestly, I'm gonna get a wonky notebook if I don't. All right, hold on. I need to stand up. So, gotta get my vellum back under there. There. So kind of line up. I apologize for my head being in the way. There we go. So you want to make sure that you have kind of lined up your notebook so that things are pretty square. So like kind of shift it, make sure that you're pretty square, then press down so you can close both sides. And if you have a screwdriver or something like that, use it, but I'm just kind of holding my bolts at the bottom so that I can go a little bit tighter. Oops, so there, so let's take a peek, make sure I did it right. Oh, nope, so see here, I'm actually a little bit off kilter, so my top is gonna, oops, hold on a sec. So my top is gonna jut out a little bit too far. I made this mistake in one of my other books. There, nope, come on. The problem is once you get it tight enough, it then takes a lot more effort to open things up. All right, this is not working, come on. Did we? All right, I'm like fussing with this a lot more than I sometimes do just because this is going to be my bullet journal and I would like it to be as durable as possible. If you are not as fussy and you don't mind kind of the hand done look, then it doesn't quite make as much of a difference. So I've tried to make sure that everything has remained square in terms of my sides kind of being straight up and down, in terms of trying to get everything kind of squared up here, okay? And then what I am gonna do, because it took me a minute, I'm gonna do one quick little bit of glue. I like to be very sure. I'm always like super paranoid. Even though this glue is very effective, I'm always very paranoid that it is just not gonna be enough. So, whoop. I definitely got glue on my board there. So the goal is to avoid your press so that you don't accidentally glue your notebook to your press. However, I tend to get a little bit of glue. I'm not perhaps the most neat at doing this. Whoops, there we go. All right, so that is that. We are going, oops, I want to get this little side bit here. Up. I'm gonna try and wipe off a little bit of the glue. That is our spine all glued up. So now you're gonna let it sit. I might actually find a couple of books just to put it on top here to, since my pieces of wood are a little bit thinner, just to kind of help press everything down. I am also, we need this glue still for the next step, but because we have to let everything dry and it takes about 15 to 30 minutes. So basically it's gonna go from white to translucent. I'm gonna go ahead and wash my brush and I will be back once everything has dried and we'll do the next step. Okay, so my glue is almost dry. I am also unfortunately getting dangerously close to not having enough light to film. So we're gonna try and finish this. Basically, I am about dry over here, so it is time to start prepping my cover. Now, I actually picked up a while ago these, they're probably like A1, A0 size sheets. They're kind of like a big poster board, and I believe they are 200 or 240 gram paper. I think they are also Clairefontaine. So I actually have a couple of different colors. I have black, gray, this copper, and a burgundy red. And I don't know if this is something you guys know about me, but when I do my bullet journals, I actually go through a rotation of colors. So I started with gray, then I did black, then I did navy blue, and then I did gray, black, and copper, and I just did gray. I'm currently finishing up my black one, which means that if I follow my pattern, copper is the next color, so that's what we're gonna do. So basically, I just took a piece of printer paper and I did it sideways so that I could cut the appropriate height, since that is as tall as I need to cover for here. Obviously my vellum is over the size of the notebook. I just cut it a little bit longer than a regular A4 size paper, so I think a regular A4 would probably be about here. And I did extra long because the last time I made a notebook, I accidentally did it just a tiny bit too short, so I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to not have enough paper to do this. So what I am going to do while I let this really dry up nicely is I'm going to prep my cover. So I think that this is going to be my outside. So I'm going to do all of my work on here on the inside. So I am going to just kind of roughly pick a point in the middle. I honestly don't even care that it's particularly like perfectly centered because I have plenty of room. Now you can, if you want, do like a back pocket or a front pocket or whatever. I am not even going to mess around with that. I am just going to do a straight cover. So we are going to take a ruler and a pencil, and for my first line I'm just going to kind of pick a place, make sure I'm pretty square, so I'm just kind of lining up. Oops, I'm actually off camera. There we go. So I'm gonna line up here and I'm just going to draw a really light line right there. This is the inside, so this is actually going to get covered. So what I am going to do now is I need to measure how much space my spine actually takes up in the notebook. So this is going to be a little bit tricky to do while it's still in the press, but we're gonna give it a shot. So I've got basically up to here. It's the handy thing about seam gauges is you can move it. So that is as much room as the spine of my notebook needs so that it won't be too squished. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm actually gonna flip it over so that I can just do it on this side here, and I'm gonna line up my blue right there. And before I even go any further, so I'm feeling this, it's actually pretty good. So we're gonna undo, because I actually do need my notebook kind of for this part of things. It's gonna make things a little bit easier. So, all right, there we go. So as you can see, my vellum isn't fully attached, which is fine. It's going to be attached when I actually glue everything together. So what I'm gonna do is just check, and I'm gonna actually have to kind of pull this off camera so I can see, is just check that when I line up. All right, so I'm actually gonna give myself a tiny bit more space. It was just a little bit under, so I'm not even gonna go the full, I'm just gonna go a tiny bit wider. And I'm gonna just draw my width right there and test again. You could be like super mathematical and actually be accurate the first time, or you could be slightly less mathematical like me and do it like this. So yes, now I have enough space. Since I have this, and if you have a seam gauge, I do recommend doing this because then as long as I don't accidentally move this, I always have the same width. So we're gonna do line up, do a couple of little marks to make sure we can draw a straight line. And now I'm going to go ahead and take my ruler again and draw what will hopefully be a straight line. There we go. So now I have my cover. This, if we're being completely honest, I will probably not have done this perfectly square. I always try my best, but I'm always a little bit off, and like, it is what it is. That's what you get with a homemade notebook. So basically, if I have done this correctly, when I line up my spine on one side, I should just barely see the bottom of the other, which is the case. So in order to actually make this work as a cover, you need your ruler still. I don't know why I put that away. And I'm gonna take my bone folder. If you don't have a bone folder, you can use something else that is not going to puncture your cover. So you basically are going to just draw a line, and I'm gonna just make sure I didn't go too wide. Sometimes I go a little wide on this just because the bone folder is a little bit wider. There we go. Okay, so that is one side of my cover. And then I'm gonna go over on this side, and let's see, I was actually pretty close on the line. That's not too bad. But I'm gonna go like so. Try again to get it as straight as you can. This is one of those times where I actually do use a ruler, give it a fold. And now if we have done a decent job, you'll see how large this is. If we've done a decent job, I should be able to nestle my notebook in the cover and see, it fits. So I am going to possibly attempt, if you guys can see here, my front section here is kind of tilted a little bit forward. So I'm gonna decide that this is my front, the slightly shorter side here, and taking a look at this, so here, you can see I've got a little bit of a gap on this side, and then on this side, I've got a little bit of a gap again. So what I'm actually gonna do, and this is not an official thing, I'm going to attempt and draw a second line with my bone folder right about there and see if I can kind of mold this cover to the spine a little bit more, because there we go. Nope, a little bit more. Where didn't you go? Come on, you. There. Up. Because having that stick out is going to bug me just a tiny bit. So we're gonna try that. Let's give a little peek. Oh, that looks much better. See? So if you don't have a perfectly square notebook, which, like, let's be honest, it's a handmade notebook, there's a decent chance it won't be. And I have two signatures on the bottom section that are not fully lined up, but you know what? It's not gonna happen. Okay, so that is my cover. So what I need to do now, and this is where things get a little bit dicier. So you need to be as neat as possible, and I actually need to go get my brush. So I have my brush, and you need to glue. So when you're gluing, you need to stay in between your lines as much as possible. I am going to go over a tiny bit on this side because I want to make sure my vellum sticks, and that'll give me a slightly glued down fly page. And what I will actually end up doing is after everything's closed, I'm going to take my bone folder and help that open up. So we are going to go ahead. This is the part where I'm always afraid I'm going to mess up, but we're just going to stop procrastinating and get this done. So let's take a peek and get to gluing. Ooh, so don't do too much glue. And you gotta go kind of quickly, which I tend to get a little bit fussy and take too long. So I'm gonna try not to do that. Oops. So you definitely don't want to have like such a thick layer of glue that things are going to like squish out the edge, except for where you actually want it to squish out. So don't go too ham when you're putting the glue down. I did that on my first notebook, and there was some squishing happening. All right, and I should have done this the other way because I am left-handed and now it's like facing the wrong direction for me. There, quickly. Also, I probably should have mentioned to the intro of this video, I'm in no way an expert. This is just like learning, trial and error. So if you actually know better ways of doing things, let me know, but just know this is how I have found to make notebooks, and it works well enough for me, so you know what. All right, so we need to lay down our side, so make sure you are well in your cover. I almost just put it up way too high. There. Okay. And if your cover is a little bit big, that is totally fine, because remember that this is a B6 notebook. So just make sure things get all squishified in. You should start seeing your binding over here if you've got kind of a good meet up there. All right, so now what you're gonna do is try and keep things as square as possible once again, and you're going to put your notebook in your press. So, whoops, let's see, how square am I? That's okay, we're gonna cut it off. This is good. The last time I made a notebook, it was actually an A5 size, and so having wonky corners was very apparent in the final notebook. But this is B6, and we're gonna cut it down, so that's okay. All right, so let's do that. There, I'm always worried that this bookbinding glue is not going to actually hold, because it seems like you don't use that much, but this stuff is strong. So trust the glue and don't use too much. Oops, and I totally got my brush on my kitchen table, but that's okay. Okay, so that is going to be the next step here. I am actually going to probably end up having, oh dear. So I like really squished things down. I always worry about doing this. Hold on a second. We're gonna fix this. So I have a little bit of a like hole. You're not even gonna be able to see it on camera. Nope, I'm definitely not gonna get it under there. Gotta fix this. I've got a little bit of a thing happening here. So I'm trying to do it as tight as possible. There. Okay, so I need to stop fussing with this. Again, I always forget to trust the glue, and the glue does work. Okay, so this is kind of the end of the notebook. However, I'm gonna do the last step. I'm gonna kind of talk you through it right now, because I am going to slightly cheat and not actually do it in the video, and I'm gonna tell you why in a second. So the last step, once this is all done, is you actually have to cut your notebook down to size. Now, in this notebook, you're going to have these crop marks, which is basically going to be the point where you need to line up here and here and cut off this side. You need to line up here and the other side and cut off that side. Obviously, since these marks are on the inside, it would make sense to take measurements and transfer them so they're on the outside, so you know where you actually have to cut. I will be doing that a little bit later, and then you actually have to cut down your notebook. So I have previously, where is it? Here we go. So I have actually used this method to cut down a notebook, and let me go grab that notebook so you can see. So this is the notebook I made. It's actually for my dad. I will be giving it to him this Christmas. And as you can see on the side here, I started cutting the notebook with this side on top, and you can very clearly see nicely cut pages and then a hack job, basically. That was because I was using an X-Acto knife and a ruler, and one, it takes a lot of strength. I mean, this thing only cut through, I don't know, 2 or 3 pages, it felt like, at a time, or you get like some sections that cut. However, I do know that it is possible to cut your notebooks down to size using just a box cutter or an X-Acto knife and a ruler, but you have to be very, very patient. I am not that patient. So I am actually waiting on an order from Amazon where I will get a very, very large, what I call a paper chunker, because it's the sound it makes. So I'm getting myself a paper chunker from Amazon. It is going to have the capacity to cut 600 pieces of paper at once, which is, well, I'm pretty sure that's what it said on there, but definitely enough to cut through my measly little 240-page notebook. And I am going to wait and cut through my notebook once I actually get my paper chunker. So that is why I'm not actually going to be able to show you cutting down my notebook to size in this video, because I'm not getting that paper cutter for another like week or so, and I need to get this video up before then. So you will actually probably even see the uncut notebook feature in another video, because I won't have gotten the paper cutter by then. But if you do not have one, which I imagine a lot of people don't, you have a couple of options. So one would be you use your X-Acto knife and your ruler after the fact. Another, which I have not actually tried, but I think that this could be a possibility, would be to sew a few of your signatures together. So for example, sew 3 or 4 signatures together and try cutting those down to size, and then sew the rest of them. You'll probably still be a little bit off in terms of like your final cut edge, but you'll probably have a neater cut than if you try and do an X-Acto knife. And you could also do the top. So for example, if you have a small paper cutter, I have one that does 12 sheets of paper. So if you do have something like that where you could do 12 sheets of paper at once, that might be a way to get nice clean edges, but you just kind of do it in sections, and then you just have to make sure that your cover was the appropriate size, and or just cut the cover down to size after the fact. So there are a couple of methods. I will say this is probably the least kind of at-home friendly aspect of making notebooks, is if you really want to get a nice clean edge and you don't want to do just a straight up A5 size paper. So this is A5, but it is the moleskin kind of sizing, so I had to cut off about 1 inch. If I hadn't had to do that, then I would have just left it like this, and that is what it is. So cutting the notebooks down to size is definitely the hardest. You can kind of make do with other materials for different aspects. You know, you can use embroidery floss, you can use really heavy books instead of a press if you really need to. Like, there's other ways you can do it, but the cutting, you need something really, really sharp. So if anyone has really good ideas that I have not thought of or don't know about, please let us know in the comment section, so that other people who want to make their own notebooks, if you don't have the like official tools, if there's a better way of doing it at home, please, please, please let us know, because I'm sure everyone would be very happy to know of different methods other than an X-Acto knife and a ruler, because that is honestly the only method that I have other than an actual like big industrial-ish paper cutter. So that is the tutorial for how to bind your own notebook. So this is, I believe the technical term is a kettle stitch binding. I like learned from someone who just kind of explained it to me, so I don't actually know the official terms for it. But if you end up downloading the notebook that I have created, or if you get notebooks from somewhere else, or you just want to start making your own notebooks, this is the method that I use to print, stitch, and basically set up the notebooks that I make at home. You will definitely see this notebook finished, cut down to size once I get everything sorted in previous videos, because this is actually going to be my personal 2020 bullet journal. I've decided to try a B6 size for next year, and so this is going to be the actual notebook that I am going to be using. So once again, if you guys have any comments, questions, anything that wasn't clear, please let me know down in the comment section. I will do my best to explain or answer any questions, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye. Hey guys, so if you've made it all the way to the end of this video and are actually watching my end screen and you're not subscribed to my channel, I would really appreciate it if you would. There's a little button right there for you to do it. And if you're interested in watching some more of my videos, I have links to 2 of my older videos off to the left there, so you can check those out if you would like to, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!